Well, welcome along. We're here with Mick Storch from 4PS and Mackay Safety. How are you, Mick?
Good, mate. Yourself?
Very, very well. Talking about some awesome capabilities within these vodcasts. And we know you've done some really high risk stuff in the water space and in aquaculture and industries involving everything from dive inspections through to compliance. Tell us what you have done involved with water.
Yeah, we've done quite a lot of work, particularly with Queensland Corporation Sunwater. So if you remember back in the mid 2000s, maybe 2015 type stuff, when we had all that flooding, there was a lot of damage on the dam infrastructure and weir infrastructure through the Bundaberg area. So we did some project management, contractor management work for Sunwater, where we essentially did a lot of the repair, not so much the repairs, but removed all the damage so that the principal contractors could come in then and install new handrails and grates and things like that. Because when the floods went through, basically it popped all the grates off and filled up all the chambers inside all the dam walls, and the weirs full of rocks and gravel and things like that. So we had very difficult work to do in them. So some of the chambers were empty because of no water, but obviously down below the water level anyway. And then others where we required diving. And so we were engaged by Sunwater to basically engage contractors, make sure the systems, things and processes are in place. And essentially they appointed us as principal contractors, and then we managed the projects. So it was a bit of a combination of, our safety staff, our experienced project manager, supervisor type people, and then just sort of applying it to, I wasn't quite familiar with diving, but we did so much different diving, and then ultimately led to a very sort of a high risk, what I thought was very difficult dive job at one of the Sunwater infrastructure projects. So.
And were there many regulations or policies already in place that related to that type of?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sunwater, we had to comply with their processes, but it was important for me to understand what the standard required from a point of view of commercial type diving. The job was mega difficult, so essentially we were working down to 10 to 15 to 20 metres of water.
Wow. With
zero visibility. You could not see, you can put lights down and you couldn't see in there, and then also had a lot of access issues. We were going down inside chambers. Basically there was no way you sort of had to go down, and then this infrastructure had not been in water and had some other things left on top of it. We shouldn't talk about too much about it, but essentially it created other hazards to us that we had to manage. But it was probably the most difficult and stressful job for me to ever have to look after and manage. But in the end, it was like, wow, that was amazing type work.
Especially because it was a job that had to be done.
Correct. Yeah, so that work, even the pre-work to repair or pull apart all the damage to the infrastructure, it was quite a long job. It took us about 12 months to do. The previous people that did that, because it happened twice in a row, they'd essentially, the floods earlier to that, it damaged all infrastructure. They'd spent like 2 to 3 years repairing that. And then the next cyclone come through and destroyed everything again. And it took us 12 months to do that work plus extra work, essentially the same thing. So, it was very, very interesting. But ultimately what it was about is, from Sunwater's point of view for us, was doing their contractor management. So having systems and processes in place, making sure everything's correct from a compliance point of view, and then managing the contractors, either their contractors or our own contractors for them.
And most importantly, which we as I say, there are overtimes we come back to, keeping people safe.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it was critical, some of those, anything to do with water in particular. So diving wasn't the biggest part of the jobs, but essentially was probably the most risky type ones, because you didn't always know what was submerged in the water, the visibilities and things like that. So I learnt a lot about commercial diving and the requirements for those sorts of things through that process. And then at the end of it, basically reflecting on it and then writing a process so that when they did it the second time, which I've since heard they've done some of that work, it was so much easier than when I had to deal with the work type thing, if that makes sense. So
absolutely, it does, and it goes to show that with your successes historically, things actually get easier for the client as it goes along.
The funny thing was, the same contractor, the diving contractor, did it, and he said to me, "You wrote too good of an instruction on how to do it. That's why they didn't get you back." So,
you did yourself out of a job.
I did myself out of a job, and it was like, I was damn. But yeah, but it was in. I mean, it wasn't until after when I did a review and thinking about, well, someone has to do this again at some stage. I had to make sure that they had the best information, because the information was very sketchy about what I had to do. I had a set of drawings to look at, and it was like, this has to be done again. It has to be. We raised some pipes in the water, and then the pipes would have to be lowered again in the water as the water tables go back down. And so and the dive contractor said, "You did too good of a job. They didn't need you." Oh well, there you go.
Well, thanks, Mick. It's amazing hearing about literally the very diverse and many and varied industries that 4PS and Mackay Safety work in.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ben. Great.